Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today we are going to be looking at overthinking. We're all familiar with it, right?
Yeah.
And to help us unpack this universal struggle, we're diving into Anne Bogel's book, Don't Overthink It.
Group book.
So many relatable scenarios in there, you know, from like agonizing over which salad mix to buy to,
Yeah.
those big life decisions that can really keep us up at night.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to pull out those golden nuggets of wisdom from Bogel's book. Those practical strategies that we can actually use to, recognize and hopefully overcome those overthinking tendencies in our own lives.
Sounds good.
So to kick things off, I want to jump right into one of Bogel's anecdotes.
Yeah.
It's the one about her obsessively checking the weather forecast before a road trip. I mean, we've all been there, right?
Oh, totally.
Refreshing that app every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, what's really going on beneath the surface there?
Well, I think it speaks to our desire for control. We want to predict and plan for every possibility.
And when we can't, it creates this anxiety.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's where overthinking can really take hold.
Which brings us to some fascinating research by Dr. Susan Nolan-Hoeksema. She found that overthinking is not just a harmless quirk. It can actually have serious consequences for our mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah, her work is really important. It showed how overthinking can make life harder, contributing to things like relationship problems and even mental health issues.
It's not just in our heads, it really manifests in our lives.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that women seem to be particularly susceptible to overthinking.
Oh, really?
Right.
Now, why is that? Is it nature-nurture or a bit of both?
Probably a bit of both. Her research pointed to some differences in brain wiring,
I see.
but also how women are often socialized. There's this pressure to be caretakers, to think about everyone else's needs.
And that can lead to a lot of rumination.
Exactly. One study found that women tend to dwell on negative emotions more than men.
While men are more likely to distract themselves.
Exactly.
So it's not just about thinking too much, but the kind of thinking we get stuck in.
Right. It's those repetitive negative thought patterns that can be really damaging.
So the big question is, can we change? I mean, can we actually break free from these overthinking habits?
Bogle is very optimistic on that front. She sees overthinking as a behavior, not a personality trait.
Okay.
So it's something we can learn to manage.
Like breaking a bad habit.
Exactly. She uses this great analogy of learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
It's hard at first, you're going to wobble, you might even fall a few times.
But with practice, you get better.
Exactly. And eventually, you're riding smoothly without even thinking about it.
So instead of saying I'm an overthinker, it's more like I'm learning to manage my overthinking.
Exactly. It's about shifting that mindset from feeling stuck to feeling empowered.
I love that.
Yeah.
So where do we start? Let's say I'm in that classic overthinking trap.
Yeah.
Stuck in analysis paralysis, unable to make a decision. Bogle shares that story about little Will at Target trying to pick out a toy.
Oh, yeah.
He's completely overwhelmed by all the options.
That's so relatable.
It is. What's the antidote to this kind of overthinking?
Bogle offers this really helpful 3-step framework. She calls it reality check, ditch perfectionism, embrace experiments.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
So the first step is that reality check.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, is there really a right answer here?
I think that's where we get tripped up. We're so afraid of making the wrong choice.
Exactly. But often there isn't one right answer. It's more about making a choice and moving forward.
So ditching that need for perfection.
Exactly. Bogle tells this funny story about her dad pointing out some uneven paint lines when she was painting a room.
Okay.
And he said, if someone else did this, you wouldn't even notice.
We are our own worst critics.
We really are. So step 2 is all about ditching perfectionism. Recognizing that done is often better than perfect.
I think that's a hard one for a lot of us to let go of.
It is, but it's so freeing once you do.
So how do we actually loosen that grip on perfection?
Bogle suggests embracing the idea of experiments. Instead of seeking the flawless outcome, what if we saw decisions as tests?
I like that.
We try things out, we learn, we adjust along the way. It takes the pressure off.
It's a much more forgiving approach.
Exactly.
So this all feels really helpful for, those smaller everyday decisions.
Yeah.
But what about the big life-altering ones? Those can feel so much weightier.
That's where values-driven decision-making comes in.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Bogle tells this great story about her friend Allie, who made this spontaneous trip to Thailand.
Okay.
And it wasn't just impulsive. It aligned with Allie's deep value of supporting women who'd experienced abuse.
So knowing her values made the decision clear.
Exactly. It gave her a framework for making a choice that might have seemed irrational to others.
So it's about getting clear on what truly matters to us and letting those values guide our choices.
Exactly. Bogle even suggests looking at your calendar. Does how you spend your time actually reflect your
It's
values?
like a values fact check.
It
I'm
is.
seeing how this connects to another concept Bogle talks about a lot, completing the cycle.
Right, completing the cycle is all about finishing what we start.
Like putting those keys away instead of leaving them on the counter.
Exactly. Or tackling that big project instead of letting it linger on your to-do list.
Because every unfinished thing becomes mental clutter.
It does. It drains our energy and makes it harder to focus.
She uses that relatable example of frantically searching for those immunization papers last minute.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
But how does putting keys away, help me make those big life decisions?
It's about creating order in our mental landscape.
Yeah.
Completing tasks, big or small, brings closure and frees up mental space.
So a tidy environment might actually lead to a tidier mind,
Exactly.
which then helps with those bigger choices.
Exactly. And it's also about taking care of the basics. Sleep, food, exercise.
Oh yeah, those pesky basics.
Right. Bogle's doctor gives this great advice. He says, walk 20 minutes a day, eat real food, get enough sleep, drink water.
Sounds almost too simple.
I know, but it's amazing how often we neglect those basic needs.
And when we're running on empty, it's hard to think straight.
Exactly. Bogle emphasizes that our physical state impacts our mental capacity. It's hard to make good decisions when you're exhausted or running on junk food.
It makes me think about how often we try to power through when what we really need is to, step back and recharge.
Yeah, sometimes slowing down is the fastest way forward.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another interesting strategy. Bogle talks about speeding up your decision making.
Speeding up.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, right? I mean, aren't we trying to slow down and be more mindful?
Right. It can seem counterintuitive, but hear me out. Bogle uses this analogy of riding a tandem bike.
Okay,
You have to speed up to find stability. Going too slow makes you wobble,
I see.
and sometimes overthinking keeps us stuck in that wobble.
So it's about trusting our gut and taking action instead of endlessly analyzing.
Exactly.
But how do we know when to speed up and when to slow down?
That's the art of it, and it comes with practice.
Right.
But Bogle acknowledges that sometimes we avoid making decisions because we're afraid of the outcome.
That fear of making the wrong choice.
Exactly. She tells the story of her friend Claire, who missed out on a business opportunity because she deliberated for too long.
Ouch.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that indecision can be just as costly as a wrong decision.
Sometimes we just need to rip off the Band-Aid and move forward.
Exactly.
Bogle also talks about the importance of embracing the unexpected. She shares that story about a canceled flight turning into this fun adventure.
Yeah, it's about shifting our perspective and finding the good in unexpected situations.
Like that couple who accidentally opened their expensive bottle of wine
Oh, yeah.
and decided to make it a special Tuesday night.
Exactly. They turned a potential bummer into a celebration.
I love that.
Okay.
It's so empowering to realize that, we're not just victims of circumstance. We have agency in how we experience those curveballs.
Exactly. We have a choice in how we respond.
And that's where the need for margin comes in, right?
Yeah.
If we're constantly overscheduled, we have no space for those spontaneous moments, whether good or bad.
Exactly. Margin gives us that flexibility to roll with the punches and embrace the unexpected.
It's like building in resilience to handle whatever life throws our way.
Exactly. And the flexibility to embrace those unexpected joys.
I love that. So building margin often means saying no to things, which can be tough for a lot of us.
It is, especially for people pleasers.
But it's about prioritizing what truly matters.
Exactly.
And I'm seeing how all these strategies weave together. Values-driven decision-making helps you say no to things that don't align with your priorities.
Right.
Completing the cycle creates that mental space.
Yes.
And outsourcing frees up time and energy.
It all works together.
It's like a system for living more intentionally.
It is.
And it allows us to be more present both for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely.
Which brings us back to the power of small actions and simple abundance. Bogle argues that generosity doesn't have to be grandiose.
Right.
Remember that story about her giving a granola bar to a homeless man?
Uh-huh.
It wasn't about solving all his problems, but it was a tangible act of kindness in that moment.
Exactly. And it shifted her perspective. She and her husband decided to always offer money a granola bar from then on.
It became a little ritual of generosity.
I love that.
It's about making kindness a habit, not waiting for some grand opportunity.
Right.
And she follows this up with that equally simple story about the peach.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that abundance isn't just about money.
It's about what we choose to share.
Exactly. So how can we be more intentional about cultivating that simple abundance in our own lives?
Well, Bogle encourages us to be mindful of how we think about money, to shift from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance,
Okay.
and to ask ourselves what our money is truly buying us, to prioritize experiences and memories over material possessions.
Like letting her kids choose pizza and soda for dinner in New York.
Exactly. It wasn't about the food itself, but the shared experience and the lasting memory.
It's about recognizing that money isn't the only currency.
Yeah.
We can be generous with our time, our attention, our energy.
Exactly.
Like that story about the impromptu trip to the popsicle shop with her cousins.
Yeah.
The cost was a little bit of sleep, but the reward was a treasured memory.
Exactly. And she reminds us that splurges can be worthwhile when they create those lasting memories.
Like her family's trip to Biltmore Estate.
Right. It was expensive, but it provided a cherished experience.
So it's about aligning our spending with our values and
Yes.
prioritizing those experiences that bring true joy and fulfillment.
Exactly.
This shift in perspective is so helpful.
It is.
It takes the pressure off of feeling like we need to constantly pinch pennies
Yeah,
and allows us to embrace those splurges that truly enhance our lives.
absolutely.
But it also makes me think about how we can be more mindful about our everyday spending.
Right.
Like maybe that daily latte isn't a frivolous expense,
Yeah,
but a ritual that brings a moment of joy and focus.
exactly. It's about being intentional with our choices, both big and small.
And recognizing that even seemingly insignificant actions can contribute to our overall well-being. This conversation has been so insightful.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on overthinking
Me too.
and a renewed sense of agency in shaping my thoughts, my actions, and ultimately the world around me.
I feel the same way. Bogle's book offers such a rich tapestry of practical wisdom, inspiring stories, and thought-provoking insights.
It does.
I think we could all benefit from revisiting these ideas regularly and finding new ways to apply them in our own lives.
Absolutely. It's funny how Bogle connects these, bigger ideas about simple abundance and the ripple effect back to very practical things. Like she talks about having a signature dish, for when you're
Yeah.
hosting people.
Oh, yeah.
It seems so simple, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Instead of overthinking every dinner party menu, you have that go-to that, works and you can just enjoy your guests.
Absolutely. It takes the pressure off.
And it frees up that mental space.
Exactly.
It reminds me of her point about having a personal uniform.
Mm.
I've always admired people who have that effortless style, but I overthink every outfit,
Oh, yeah.
what to wear, what to wear.
It's so easy to get caught up in those details.
It is. So is this uniform idea like, wearing the exact same thing every day?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's more about having a framework for your wardrobe. Like Obama famously stuck to gray or blue suits
Oh, yeah?
to free up mental bandwidth for bigger decisions.
It makes you realize how many little choices we make each day that drain our energy without us even realizing it.
Absolutely.
So could this apply to other areas of life too?
Definitely, Bogle talks about limiting options for things like betting books to read, even what to plant in your garden. Narrowing the field makes choosing easier.
So it's about creating constraints to liberate ourselves from overthinking.
Exactly.
I love that. So this leads us to a strategy that I think can feel tricky for a lot of people: outsourcing, which, by the way, isn't just for CEOs or, the wealthy.
Right.
It's about being strategic with your time and energy.
Exactly.
But I'll admit, I struggle with letting go of control. What if things aren't done my way?
That's a common concern. Bogle actually offers 3 questions to ask yourself when you're considering outsourcing.
Okay, lay them on me.
So first, can you do it yourself? If not, outsource it.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, do you want to do it? Even if you're capable, some tasks are just soul-sucking.
That's where I get stuck. I feel like I should do everything myself.
I get it, but it's important to be honest with yourself. Bogle's friend Meg taught herself podcast editing,
Oh.
which was tough, but it gave her a sense of accomplishment during a hard time. It wasn't just about the task itself, it was about what it did for her.
So sometimes the process is valuable, even if it's hard.
Exactly.
But what about when we can't afford to hire help? Not everyone has that luxury.
That's the third question: can you afford it? And not just financially, but in terms of time and mental energy.
Right.
Sometimes paying someone frees up mental space for what matters most, like Bogle hiring a professional to choose paint colors.
Oh, yeah.
Saved her so much stress, and she loved the result.
It's like investing in peace of mind.
Yeah.
But how do you choose who to outsource to? I've had bad experiences where it just didn't align with what I wanted.
Trust is key. Do your research, get referrals. And clear communication is vital too, like making sure your painter understands your style.
Right.
Bogle also suggests tapping into your network. Friends often have skills they're happy to share.
Like her friend who helped her organize paperwork.
Exactly. It turned a dreaded task into a fun hangout.
So outsourcing doesn't have to be impersonal.
It doesn't have to be. And sometimes you just need the pros. Like when Bogle hired a CrossFit coach to check her form.
Oh, yeah.
Getting confirmation that she was doing it right ended years of worry.
Sometimes that expert reassurance is worth its weight in gold.
It really is.
This all ties back to what we were saying about embracing the unexpected.
Yeah.
Like Bogle's New York trip, where the canceled flight led to a whole new adventure.
Exactly. It's about turning potential disappointment into an opportunity.
We can choose how we react.
Exactly. Like that couple who turned their spilled expensive wine into a celebration.
I love that. It's so empowering to realize that we're not just victims of circumstance.
Right. We have agency.
We have agency in how we experience those curveballs.
And that's where the need for margin comes in. If we're constantly overscheduled, we have no space for those spontaneous moments, whether good or bad.
Right.
Margin gives us that flexibility to, roll with the punches and embrace the unexpected.
It's like we're building in resilience to handle whatever life throws our way.
Exactly. And the flexibility to embrace those unexpected joys.
I love that.
Yeah,
So building margin often means saying no to things,
it does.
which can be tough for a lot of us.
It can be.
But it's about prioritizing what truly matters.
Exactly.
And I'm seeing how all these strategies weave together.
Yeah.
Values-driven decision-making helps you say no to things that don't align with your priorities.
Right.
Completing the cycle creates that mental space.
Yes.
And outsourcing frees up time and energy.
It all works together.
It's like a system for living more intentionally. And it allows us to be more present, both for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely.
Which brings us back to the power of small actions and simple abundance. Bogle argues that generosity doesn't have to be grandiose.
Right.
Remember that story about her giving a granola bar to a homeless man?
Yeah.
It wasn't about solving all his problems, but it was a tangible act of kindness in that moment.
Exactly. And it shifted her perspective. She and her husband decided to always offer money a granola bar from then on.
It became their little ritual.
I love that.
It's about making kindness a habit, not waiting for some grand opportunity.
Right.
And she follows this up with that equally simple story about the peach.
Yeah, a simple act of sharing.
Exactly. It's a reminder that abundance isn't just about money.
It's about what we choose to share.
Exactly. It's amazing how Bogle weaves all these seemingly disparate ideas together. Simplifying choices, building margin, embracing simple abundance, and recognizing the ripple effect of our actions. It paints a really compelling picture of how we can create a life that's both more intentional and more joyful.
It is. It's not just about, reducing stress and overthinking, but about cultivating a mindset that allows us to be more present, more engaged, and more generous.
And it's so empowering to realize that we have a choice in how we respond to life's challenges and opportunities. Like Bogle says, we don't have to be victims of circumstance. We can choose to be creators of our own experience.
Exactly. And she takes this a step further in the final chapter, where she challenges us to think beyond ourselves and become creators of justice, joy, compassion, and peace in the world around us.
Okay, this sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm eager to hear more about how she connects overthinking to these larger social issues.
Well, she argues that when we get stuck in our own heads, we become less attuned to the needs of others. It's like our capacity for empathy and action gets diminished.
That makes sense. It's like overthinking creates a kind of inward focus that prevents us from seeing and responding to the needs of others.
Exactly. And she reminds us that our choices, even seemingly small ones, have consequences that extend far beyond ourselves. She shares that powerful story about encountering a homeless man while leaving Costco with a car full of granola bars.
Oh, yeah.
She and her husband realized they could have easily shared some of their abundance, and it prompted them to make a new rule for themselves. Always offer both money and a granola bar to those in need.
It's such a simple but profound gesture.
Yeah.
It's not about solving all the world's problems, but about making a tangible difference in that moment.
Exactly. And it's about cultivating a mindset of generosity and compassion.
Right.
Yeah.
And she follows this up with the equally simple story about the peach.
Yes. Just a simple act of sharing.
It's a reminder that generosity doesn't have to be grand or complicated. It can be as simple as sharing what we have with those who are less fortunate.
Exactly. And Bogle challenges us to ask ourselves, how can we be creators of good in our own lives and communities?
It's a call to action that feels both urgent and hopeful. Like we can all make a difference no matter how small. She leaves us with a powerful quote from Wendell Berry. Small destructions add up, but so do acts of renewal.
It's a reminder that our choices have a cumulative effect, and that even small acts of kindness and generosity can contribute to a more just and compassionate world.
This deep dive has been so inspiring. It's given me a whole new perspective on overthinking and a renewed sense of purpose in how I want to show up in the world.
Me too. Bogle's book offers such a rich tapestry of practical wisdom, inspiring stories, and thought-provoking insights.
It does.
I think we could all benefit from revisiting these ideas regularly and finding new ways to apply them in our own lives.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I'd love to pull out some key takeaways for our listeners to ponder. It can be helpful to distill those valuable insights into a concise and memorable format.
That's a great idea. A 10-point summary would be a fantastic resource for our listeners to revisit and reflect on.
Okay, I'm ready. How about this for our first point? Overthinking is a common problem with serious consequences for our mental and emotional well-being. It's not just a harmless quirk, it can genuinely impact our lives in significant ways.
That's a great start. It sets the stage for understanding the importance of addressing this issue.
For point number two, I'd say we can learn to overthink less by shifting our mindset and believing in our ability to change. Overthinking is a behavior, not an identity, and we have the power to choose different thought patterns.
Perfect. It highlights that change is possible and that it starts with a fundamental shift in perspective.
Okay, for number three, let's get practical. Overcome analysis paralysis by doing a reality check, ditching perfectionism, and embracing experiments. So often we get stuck in the pursuit of the perfect choice, but sometimes it's better to just make a decision and move forward.
That's a great action step for those who struggle with decision making.
For number four, let's focus on values. Make decisions with less angst by clarifying your values and letting them guide your choices. When we know what truly matters to us, it becomes easier to make decisions that are aligned with our deepest priorities.
That's a powerful way to streamline decision making and ensure that our actions are aligned with what truly matters to us.
Okay, for number five, let's emphasize the practical. Complete the cycle by finishing what you start and taking care of the basics. Sleep, food, exercise. Sometimes the simplest actions can have the most profound impact on our ability to think clearly and make sound decisions.
That's a great reminder that those fundamental habits create a strong foundation for mental and emotional well being.
I'm on a roll. For number six, let's encourage action. Speed up your decision-making process when appropriate and learn to lean into unexpected situations. Sometimes overthinking keeps us stuck in a state of inaction, and the best way to break free is to simply take a leap of faith.
That's a valuable strategy for combating analysis paralysis and cultivating resilience.
Okay, for number seven, let's embrace rituals. Embrace rituals to ground yourself, reset your focus, and bolster your sense of identity. Rituals can provide a sense of structure and stability in our lives, helping us to feel more grounded and less susceptible to overthinking.
That's a beautiful way to create structure, intentionality, and meaning in our lives.
Number eight, strategically outsource tasks to free up mental space and reduce decision fatigue. We don't have to do it all ourselves, and sometimes the best way to protect our time and energy is to delegate tasks to others.
Love it. It's about recognizing that we don't have to do it all ourselves and that seeking help can be a sign of strength, not weakness.
Number nine, practice simple abundance by allowing yourself to enjoy small pleasures without guilt or overthinking. We deserve those little moments of joy, and embracing them can make a big difference in our overall well-being.
That's a wonderful reminder to be kind to ourselves and to embrace the good things in life.
And finally, number 10, recognize the ripple effect. Our choices, both big and small, have the power to shape the world around us. Let's be mindful of the impact of our actions and strive to create a ripple effect of positivity, kindness, and compassion.
That's a powerful ending note. It encourages us to act with intention and to recognize the impact of our choices, both on ourselves and on others.
This list is a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to start tackling overthinking in their own lives and create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
It's a great reminder that we have the power to create positive change one thought and one action at a time.
Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of Anne Bogel's Don't Overthink It as much as we have. Remember, overthinking is a common struggle, but it doesn't have to rule our lives. By implementing these simple yet powerful strategies, we can reclaim control of our thoughts, make decisions with more confidence, and create a more joyful and fulfilling life. Until next time, happy thinking.
And may your thoughts be kind, your actions intentional, and your impact positive.